Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for clicking on the video if you're new. Today I thought I'd do a topic on the provider male and how I feel that I've slightly changed how I feel about this and how I feel about the provider male, and I want to try and explain a little bit about that, and I also want to explain how I feel that the provider male myth is actually hurting women. So first of all, you'll probably all be aware watching this, but the provider male myth is the belief that the man should earn all of the income and support his wife so she doesn't have to work. And there's so much we see on social media of women saying how to get provider man. It seems to be the zeitgeist of the moment. And obviously this is in response to how hard life is at the moment. There's always been this type of content. There's always been the get the bag content. But I think it's definitely ramped up at the moment because obviously we're going through the cost of living crisis. We're going through a hard time where it is hard for everyone to pay their bills and make money. So we're in the right kind of time frame for this content to fly. This content of finding the provider male. And it's what women tend to produce. I think there's two things. I think first of all, I think it's harming women because it's going to be incredibly rare for the majority of women to find a provider male that will provide all the income for the household so she doesn't have to work. I think we're sold this lie. We're sold this lie that provider males are everywhere. We're sold this lie that it is easy to obtain a provider male, and we're also told that if a man is not a provider male, then there is something wrong with him. I'm not just making a pick me video for subscribers. I generally want to make this video because I feel it's harming women. I feel it's harming women and I feel it's harming their dating choices in believing that they're going to A, get a provider male, and B, thinking that there is a plethora of provider males when I generally don't think there are. And I think first of all, we're kind of told that this is what I hate through different sides of the internet, telling men the purpose of being a man is to be a provider male. Obviously women want to have a man that works and that contributes to the household. I really changed my belief on finding someone that is the sole provider for the household. I think it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous if you're in a household where only the man makes money, because that puts women in the position of possible financial abuse, of possible not having a voice, not having a say because they don't contribute to the household. And I think it puts more power on the man than the women. And I feel like the women sometimes don't have agency in these dynamics. But also I think it kind of makes men feel that if they are not the provider male, there is something wrong. And when I recently saw Andrew Tate get arrested, I kind of had to obviously not laugh because of his crimes that he's committed, but laugh in a way because I saw a piece of content by the comedian, I think it's Josh Johnson, and he was saying that this man was arrested in a female blouse and capri pants. That's his joke. That's not my joke. I wish it was my joke. It's true. If you look at this man, he is a feminized woman. He's wearing a female shirt. He's wearing capri pants. He's wearing shoes with no socks and probably has cheesy feet. And we're supposed to hold this man up as a masculine man when he's made all his money, allegedly, sex trafficking women. Is this what men are truly looking up to? This myth that providing for a female is the only thing that is masculinity. I think we've generally gone a bit loopy. We've generally gone a bit loopy where we think that all a man has to do is provide. As long as he's got that box ticked, then he can do whatever he wants. He's not accountable for anything else as long as he provides, as long as he provides to the female. And I think there's two issues. There's the issues of men producing content for men, saying that to be a man, you have to be the provider male. And then there's also the flip side, the women that are producing female content talking about princess treatment, talking about how they don't have to work, how they have a provider male. And what you'll find this is they probably don't realize it, but it's internalized misogyny. It's putting other women down that have not been able to get a provider male. And I think in general, there is so much shame attached to this. There's so much shame attached to men if they cannot be the provider male. And then there's so much shame on women if they cannot attain a provider male. You'll definitely see this hierarchy on social media where the women that can get a provider male believe that they are above other women in some capacity because they have got the provider male. I think it is ego driven. I'm sorry, any woman that has a so-called provider male, there will be some kind of ego attached to that. There will be some kind of ego of, I've got the provider male. I don't have to work. I, on the whole, do not believe all these women that are like love and light. There is some kind of ego attached to that. There always will be. It's impossible to date a rich man and to not have any ego attached to that of, I have got a rich man. I am better than other women because I have succeeded in getting a rich man. I fell into this trap of watching other women with provider men and then realizing there was no way I was going to attain that. And then feeling jealous when I realized there was no way I was going to attain that. And like I've spoken about in other videos, those type of men want a certain type of women. And we're not going to pull the golden retriever gif up again. But you know what I mean, that there is a price to that lifestyle. And if you want a man like that, you have to behave in a certain way. I think it's a disservice to women because they generally believe in the myth of the provider male. And on the whole, it's only going to be a really small percentage of women that get the provider male. It's not going to be everyone. I generally think it's harmful to women because maybe they are discounting good men because they think, oh, this man's not going to be provider male. We're taught that the only type of male that there should be is the provider male. This is also why I stopped watching spirituality content, because I was constantly pumped this myth that the only type of male out there was the provider male. And I knew in the current dynamic that I'm in and where I live, that is not going to happen. It's the survivorship bias of seeing the people create businesses and then provide for their wives. It's survivorship bias of you're hearing the story of the pilot that made it home. The majority of regular people are not going to get a provider male. It is going to be impossible for a lot of people. As a woman, you're going to have to work. It's going to be 2 incomes into the household. Even now, as a female, the only way of realistically owning your own property, it's not going to be through traditional work. It's going to be either daddy's money helping you out. It's going to be you create your own business, or you have an OnlyFans, or you have some kind of brand. These days, this is the only way for a woman to realistically buy a house and get on the property ladder, unless they want to live somewhere up north, somewhere where nobody really wants to live. We have to be realistic nowadays that most women will be working and contributing to the household in some capacity, and so will the man. On the whole, I think the provider male is a myth, and anyone selling this lie to you that you can get a rich man or you can find a provider male is honestly lining their own pocket. They're lying to you. They're lining their own pockets, basically. If you're nowhere near those circles, then you're not going to get a provider male. And again, I know putting out this video, people will call me a pick-me, they'll call me a pick-me-sha or whatever. But I'm just telling you how the economy works at the moment and how the majority of the wealth will be within a certain portion of the population. And for the majority of us, women will have to work, and we will not have the soft life. We will not have the soft life of a provider male. But also, it's dangerous. I just think it's so dangerous to put all of your financial needs on your husband. And from personal experience, I have seen dynamics where the man is the breadwinner, the female stays at home. And because there's so much pressure on the man financially, there is so much pressure on the man to bring home the bacon. There is I would say, a higher propensity for those men to act out and cheat because they have so much financial pressure and they feel, why am I working this hard? Why am I doing all of this? You're at home all day with the children. I'm working my backside off. And there is that propensity to cheat because they feel that they're doing all the work and then they act out. And that's why you'll see certain creators say rules for alphas, rules for betas. It is true on the whole. I think when there is money involved, women do tend to loosen the boundaries a bit. And especially if the man has the purse strings and is earning all the money, they know that there isn't that power there. And I've been watching a few videos from another creator I like at the moment called Jenny at Life Take Two. And she is a lady that got married really young, was a Mormon wife for the first 20 years of her life or so. And then at 40, her husband just turned around and said, nope, I don't want to be with you anymore. And she was left homeless. She was left homeless because she'd never had a job. You should really watch her channel, it's really good. She'd been a trad wife her whole life. She'd got to 40, she'd never had a job. She could never put anything on her CV. And she was in this really vulnerable position where she did not know what to do. She was homeless. I think her case is an extreme case because he withdrew support from the children. He wouldn't pay any support to the children. And she was left homeless because she had no money. She wasn't even allowed a bank account. She'd literally been a trad wife her whole life and was looking after the children. And she had been sold the lie of the homemaker. And in the end, I think now she's doing social media and she's warning about the trad wife lifestyle and how I think it is really harmful to women to place all their financial autonomy on a man, because a man can withdraw that at any point. And also, things change. If you're a female and you're in that position, I think the time the men turn the most toxic is when you find another partner. Obviously, a man's not going to like supporting you and your children if you move another man into that house. I think that's when, for her story, I think looking at it, I'm like, oh, that's when he changed. When you got someone else, men do not like paying alimony if you've got someone else, if you've got a new partner. As soon as you find another partner, that male jealousy kicks in because that's human nature. A man is not going to want to provide for you if you found another man. He's gonna want to withdraw the funds. I think it's harming women. I think it's generally, it's putting them in a risky position. It's putting them in a risky position if they think, oh, the provider male, I don't have to work. And I think that's more of a you issue. I think that's more of a you issue if you feel that you want to tap out. And if you feel that you just don't want to do anything, I think that's probably a you issue. And I don't know, I'm not one to judge, but maybe you do need some therapy if you feel you need to tap out and you don't want to earn money. I see a lot of people on social media and they just, women especially, just generally don't want to work. I don't want to generalize, it seems to be the younger generation. They generally don't want to work anymore, which I find really strange. As a millennial, I was part of Blair's government where we were told, oh yeah, you can be anything you want to be. But I think it's a you problem if you just generally don't want to work. I don't know, I'm trying not to generalize, but some women generally think they are so beautiful that they shouldn't work. They almost feel that because they are so pretty, they are entitled to a soft life and they don't have to work. And unfortunately, I don't think anyone escapes work or having to contribute in some way. I think it is people believing social media. people believing the hype of the safety net of the provider male. And in some ways, I do feel sorry for men because men don't have that option to tap out. I think this is why we see more suicides from men, is because men do not have the option to just tap out of the workplace, whereas women do. Women tap out of the workplace all the time by having a family, by having children, by getting married. They see it as a way to tap out of working. If they marry a man of certain means, obviously the majority of women can't do that, but if they marry a certain type of man, they see it as a way of just tapping out of the matrix. I don't have to work. But like I say in all my other videos, I generally do feel like it's a gilded cage that from the outside looks wonderful and perfect because they're going on all these exotic holidays and don't have to work. But I feel in that position you probably are on eggshells. You're probably constantly thinking, I'm going to be usurped by a younger, prettier, hotter woman. I'm going to be usurped by someone else. My position is unstable. Again, try not to generalize, but the women I see on social media that are with so-called alpha men tend to be incredibly neurotic people. They don't seem to be that stable. They tend to have a lot of mental health issues. They tend to not feel good about themselves. They tend to be just really anxious in general about their position. And I think it's because they know that their so-called alpha male will be getting attention from women. They'll be getting women that don't have financial means that will be trying to get that type of man because, again, they want to escape the matrix and they want to have their own kind of financial security. And I generally feel that the provider male is a myth for the majority of people, and it's harming people. And again, it's internalized misogyny of other women trying to show that they are better than other women, and then it's men not feeling that they are good enough because they can't provide for a female and allow her to have the soft life. Again, in general, we need to stop comparing ourselves to the top 10% of people that have a business, that have made their own money, and that are living their life in a way that most people can't really obtain. As always, love you. Thank you for watching. Take care.